welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Steven and this is Still World Codes. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. Make sure you share and like this video and all my videos. So today we are going to be getting our hands dirty with codes. If you have not actually set up your environment, please go back to my previous video. There's a video on the video on what I make for the overview of Python. There's also a video on how I made on how you can download Anaconda and also get a hang of working with Jupyter Notebook. So please go back to my previous videos for those who have not set up their environment before you come to this video. For those who are set up, we are going to actually code along together. So today we are going to be talking about syntax and we're going to be doing some other little coding aspects. Like I said, we're going to be getting our hands dirty with code. So please sit back, relax, and get your favorite beverage. As you watch this video, sometimes it's okay for you to pause this video so that you can actually get your code running along. The more you code along, the better you become actually, because coding is more like practicing. So as you're coding, as you're learning from watching videos, you also need to practice and play around with your codes. So sit back and relax and watch me as I take you along in this journey. So today we are going to be working on syntax, and I'm going to be opening my Anaconda. So you can see this is our Anaconda navigator here. So I'm going to be opening my Anaconda. Yeah, so we have a notebook here, the Jupyter notebook, not this Jupyter lab, the Jupyter notebook. So launch this Jupyter notebook, it opens a kernel, which is cool, and we have it up and running. So we have it here already. So this is going to be our environment that we'll be working on. So I'm just going to create a new Jupyter notebook. Select Python kernel, do the tests, print hello world, and run. So we have it, hello world, run. Also, I'm going to rename this to syntax, SYN tax, rename. So you can see this our notebook now is renamed as syntax. So this is going to be our environment for today. Somebody who asked me, what is print? Now, this is an inbuilt function in Python. So what is print? Before I go into print, I'm going to explain what syntax is. So like syntax is more like in programming, it refers to like a set of, we can say a set of rules that dictate how your programs are written. It defines a structure. It also defines the combination of symbols, keywords, and other elements that actually makes up a valid program. So you see, syntax are more like things that you really need to know, because they are the one that actually makes up how you actually run your programs basically. Now, what is print? So print is like an inbuilt function in Python used for displaying information in your console. So you can see that we have our output being displayed here. In Jupyter Notebook, you definitely just like see the output beneath the cell, which is very much cool. It helps you, like I said, it helps you to visualize whatever you're actually doing. So this print helps you to like show your output from your code, which you're actually seeing here. So whenever you have any expression and use this word print, it helps you to print your output beneath the cell or actually in your console in some other IDEs basically. So that's what the print does. So one good thing you need to know about syntax, the first thing you need to know about syntax is comments. So I'm going to write comments. So what are comments? So comments are like they are things that are actually, they're like syntax that are included in your rules, but basically they are not executed when you actually provide, when you actually write it. So once the IDE sees them, it does not execute that particular set of code. They are only used to provide information to the developer so that the developer can actually understand the code. So when you have like an algorithm that is complex, or even the ones that are actually quite simple, it's better for you as a programmer to actually write comments to your code. So we have two types of comments. So we have the single line comments, and we have the multiple line comments. So the single line comments is denoted as using just an hash key. So whenever you put an hash key and you put something in front of the hash key, it is not the system or the IDE would see that particular thing as a comment. So whatever is in front of it is going to mask it up. When your code is running on runtime, it's going to mask these things. They are not going to compile with your code. They are not going to show with your code. You understand? So the output would be based on the commands that do not have this particular key behind them. For multiple lines, you have this apostrophe, or you have this also, multiple line. I am a multi line. Make sure there are three. So we have 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom for single quotes. For double quotes, we have 3 at the top, 3 at the bottom. So multiple line means like when you have several lines of comments, instead of you to be putting hash key in front of each of them, which is going to be stressful. So what you have to do is just put in the top and at the bottom. Whatever you put inside the code becomes a comment. The IDE would not see it as part of what you need to see. So let me increase this a little bit. Yeah. So I think it looks more visible now. Yeah. So you need to take note of that basically. So these are comments. So it is not going to see it as part of your code. Now, another thing you need to know. Now, they are very, very much important. You make sure you should know that you do not make mistake using the wrong particular syntax for your comment. It is either you use the hash key, or you use your single quote, or you use your double quote. Now, let's go ahead. We have some things that we need to know, which are called brackets. So for the brackets, we have the square brackets, we have the curly brackets, and we have the curvy brackets, or called parentheses. Now, the square bracket is denoted with this. So this is what they call a square bracket. The curly bracket is denoted with this. This is what they call the curly brackets. And the parenthesis is denoted with this. Now, what are square brackets? So square brackets are basically used for the lists. They are also used for lists. Is actually a data type that we're going to be talking about maybe in my next video. It's used for selectors, or it's used to assessing elements. So assessing, how could I spell assess wrong? Yeah. So it's used for assessing elements, it's used for selectors, or it's actually used for a list. So when you are creating a list, which is actually a data type, a list of numbers, a list of words, which is string, you actually put them inside the square brackets. So for curly brackets, they are used for dictionaries, which is actually a data type. So we're going to learn that in the next video. So we have dictionaries, sets. Is this for sets? Is this for also for formatting string? Is this for formatting strings? And what are curly brackets used for? So curly brackets, the curly brackets are used for functions, or method calls. They are are used for grouping expression, or encapsulating encapsulation of codes. And we can see they are also used for tuple creation. Tuple. So tuple is also a data type that we're going to be talking about. Now, do not make this mistake. You make sure you use the particular brackets for their purpose. I cannot use a square bracket to create dictionaries. I cannot use a square bracket for sets. I cannot use a curly bracket for list. It's going to be recognized as tuples. So you really need to know the kinds of brackets you are using for the specific part of the things they are going to do. So it's quite important. That's why I'm actually putting it as part of my first set of things you really need to know when you're actually coding with Python. It is very much important for you to know the kinds of brackets you are going to be using these things for. Now, another thing you need to know is about case sensitivity. Python is case sensitive. So A is not equals to A. So a small letter A is not equals to a capital letter A. What does that mean? Python, no matter how things are spelled the same, if there's a difference in their casing, Python sees them as two separate things. So its memory would store the particular value of one thing against the other thing if they are having different case. So that's why they call case sensitive. If you are using a small letter, it has to be a small letter. If you're using a capital letter, it has to be a capital letter, all true. So you cannot create a variable with a small letter and you expect it to be called that variable with a capital letter. They are not the same. It's not going to recognize them as the same. So dog is not equals to dog, even though dog is like spelled as dog, but because the dog of D, which is the first part spelled as small letter, is not equals to the dog spelled as capital letters. Python is case sensitive, take note, which is very important. Also, one thing you need to know is indentation. Indentation in Python is very, very, very important. Now, what is indentation? So let's say I have if A equals to B, print something. Now, if you look at this code, we can see that immediately we shoot an enter here, it creates a tab. Unlike here, we have, it starts at the same point of the particular code. But what we have here is quite different. When you place an enter, you can see it created a tab space for us. This tab space is what they call indentation. Why is it doing this? Now, Python recognizes this as a block of code. So a block of code is like a chunk of code that runs together as one. Now, for example, when you're creating a function or you're declaring a statement, which is a control statement like this, the next line is going to see it as a child of the first line, the beginning. So once you have this colon in front of it, it sees this as a block of code already. So whatever you have inside, it sees this as a child of what you have here. Now, if you do not want to have something as a child inside, because if you click on pressing enter, you will see that it's going to continue to give you this until when you say, okay, no, Python, I do not want it to be a child. So you can literally just clean it up, or you can press a double enter for you to start something else from the actual ending point. But basically, what it's saying is, now, if it's going to run this code, it's going to see this as the parent. It's going to see this as a child of this. It's going to see this as a child of this. It's not going to see this as a child of this because they are starting on the same line. Also, you can also have nested elements. So you can see it keeps on giving me this. Now, at this point, it's seeing this as a parent and it's seeing this as a child of this. It's seeing this not as a child of this, but as a child of this. So it's seeing this third one as a grandchild. Let me use the word grandchild. It's seeing it as a grandchild of this, so on, and so forth. Yeah. So you continue to see this, except you say, okay, Python, I don't want it to be a child of this. I just want it to be a standalone. That's when you can, just hit the enter key, the backspace key to delete the tab space. But basically, it recognizes already as a child. So it takes indentation extremely serious. So because it makes it more easier for you to read your code when writing your code. So we're going to be seeing that in the long run, more of it in the long run. Another thing you need to know about Python is variable declaration. Now, what is variable? A variable is more like a symbolic name or an identifier, basically, associated with the storage location. So what's the storage location? It's just like a memory address of your particular system that actually holds a value. So when you're creating a variable, it sees when you're creating a variable, it says that the variable is being held as a memory or as a storage location, which allows you to impute a value for the particular system to be able to recognize that particular thing. Now, for example, you have bucket. Now, how is a variable being declared? The first thing you need to do is when you declare a variable, it can be anything. So I want to declare a variable. I want something that will be able to hold water. What do? I have to get a bucket. Now, once I put water inside the bucket, the identity of the bucket changes to water. So whenever we're seeing the bucket, we're actually seeing a bucket of water, not just an empty bucket. If I change this to oil, I'm going to be seeing a bucket of oil. If I change this to soap, I'm going to be seeing a bucket of soap. So the value of your variable becomes the identity of a variable. So whenever you are calling bucket, the computer is going to see the value of bucket, which is soap. Just like you have bucket of water, bucket of soap. So when you assign a variable, the first thing you need to do is you declare the variable, which is the variable name that you have here. Then this equals to is an assignment operator. It helps you to be able to assign a value to a variable, and then you put in your value. So this is how you actually declare the variable. So you have the variable name, assignment operator, then value. So this is the generic way to actually declare it. Now, when declaring a variable, there are several naming conventions that you really need to take note of. You must adhere to these conventions because it makes your code more readable and it makes your code more to make sense. So one of the first things you need to know is about the casing. So the first casing I would introduce you is called the camel case. Just like you have the camel and you have the hunchback of a camel. So a camel case starts with a small letter when you're joining 2 or 3 or 4 words together. So the first word is all recognized as small letter. The second word, the starting would be a capital letter. The third word, the starting will also be a capital letter. So that's why it's called a camel case, because at each point of the next words, the subsequent words, it always starts with a capital letter. So they call it camel case. The next one you need to know about is snake case. What is snake case? Snake case is, you can actually write them in whatever amount of, it just makes sense for you to write them in small letters or capital letters. But when you are joining 2 or 3 or 4 words together with an underscore, so you can have snake case, snake case. So when you join several words together with an underscore, that variable convention is called a snake case. That's what you can see. We can see we have either 2 words, 3 words, or 4 words, so on and so on and so on and so on. The next thing you also need to know about is you can also start a word with an underscore, or you can start a word with an underscore and put an underscore in between, or you can start a word with an underscore, you can put it in between, and you can also put it at the ending part. So all these things are actually good conventions of actually declaring a particular variable. You can also have them in small letters. You can have them in small letters all through. You can have them in capital letters all through. So which is actually good in maybe when you want to declare a constant, which is cool. So all these are actually good conventions of declaring a variable. Also, you can have them by putting a number in front of it. So you can say test 1 or test 10. This is also recognized as a good way to actually declare a variable, but do not do the otherwise by saying test 10 test. So you can see even the ID is already showing a difference, is recognizing this as a number and this as a string, which shows that there's going to be a problem if I actually create this as a variable. So let's do some testing. You can see I commented everything just at once using, the single quote. I could have just put a pound or an hash key, but that's going to be stressful. So what I just did is I just put this at the top and put this at the bottom. That's seen all of that as a comment. So we can just do a print so I'm going to just create my variable is equals to 2, print my variable. So at this point when I declare the variable, which is my variable, what happens here is the computer, my IDE, sees this my variable as a variable, but whenever it is being called in from the memory, it sees a value of number 2. So if I print this out, you can see we have my variable is equals to 2, print my variable, it gives me an output of number 2. Because whatever you are putting inside the variable, whatever value you're actually assigning to a variable becomes the identity of that particular variable. So we can see we have 2, which is my variable. That's exactly what you're seeing here. So if you do also and say Steven, and I print this, it sees my variable as Steven. So the identity of this my variable has changed from number 2 to Steven. So it's used this particular variable to be able to identify whatever value, to recall whatever value you have inside. So as much as the print function prints it gives you a particular variable, you can also perform some other operations. So you can say print 2 plus 4. If I run this, it's going to give it 6. So automatically Python works with arithmetic. So we're going to be talking about that in our next video. We're going to be talking about arithmetic operations. So you can see we have 2 plus 4, calculate 2 plus 4 and say okay, 2 plus 4 is 6, and actually gives us a printout of 6, which you have here. So which is very, very cool. So this is actually quite superb. These are a few things you really need to know about Python. So when you just do a recap, print statement is just like an inbuilt command that helps you to display your output to your console or at the bottom of your cell. Comments are things that do not run with your code. They do not run with your code. It only gives you an insight or helps you to be able to to explain whatever algorithm you've written. Syntax like brackets are very quite more important. The square bracket is not supposed to be used for the things you are going to use for curly brackets as much as curly bracket or parentheses. Case sensitive. Python is quite case sensitive. It uses indentation to make your code more readable, and you can see how the indentation is being followed, neatly followed in terms of tab. Then also declaring variables. So variables, like I said, is like what the memory, what the ID is going to use to recognize a particular value. It's going to be stored. So it's going to store a value in a memory location, and it becomes the value of that particular variable becomes the identity of the variable. So anytime you're calling the variable, you definitely have the value that is going to be displayed with you, and that's it. So these are a few things you really need to know. So in the next video, we're going to be talking about a lot more about data types. We're going to be talking about operators. We're going to be talking about, we have arithmetic, comparison operators, and we're also going to be doing some conditional statements, and so on and so on and so forth. So these are a few things you really need to know about. These are things that are quite important for you, and we have in our learning track, there's going to be a lot to learn. So please keep on stay on track, continue to move, and just keep it up. One day you're going to get there. You're going to become a very good Python programmer. So please hit the share, hit the like, and click on the subscribe button, and make sure you click on the notification bell icon, and see you in my next video.